What's going on, everybody? This is Political Ideas and Thoughts. And this video is going to be... I'm not sure if I'm going to release this video or not, but this video is going to be about the YouTube changes, my thoughts, and some maybe some greater context behind what is going on here. So if you don't know, if you're not like an uploader, or if you don't upload videos or anything to your YouTube channel, whatever, YouTuber is putting about changes that YouTube creators must comply with in order to, I don't want to say necessarily stay as a channel, but in order to comply with laws and whatnot. And my personal opinion is that YouTube is overreacting. Of course, they've always done this. Actually, it's not the first time that they've overreacted when it comes to certain things. I might get into that later on in this video, but and this is true for a lot of things, actually. Politics, government, whatever it is. There's a lot of overreaction that happens. So you have to now show or tag your videos or your channel as either kids or adults. And if you do it as kids, you can't comment or share your videos. Now, I know some people might have a problem with the comment part, but that at least can get. I think it's a bit of it's a possible that it might be a bit of a, not necessarily overreaction in this case, but the sharing is definite overreaction, because what's happening is, so let me tell you why I think this is happening. Why I think they've gone to such an overreaction of banning sharing. Basically, you cannot share a video that's made by a kid's channel now. Once these rules come into effect, which is going to be probably pretty soon, the 10th of December or something like that. So the reason why I think this is a bit of an the reason why I think YouTubers overreacting this way is because a lot of the media and a lot of politics and politicians and all these different people have really gone after social media. I'm not talking about the left or the right, I'm talking about all of them. One side wants censorship, one side doesn't, and so YouTube is between a rock and a hard place. All these different social media companies are between a rock and a hard place, and oftentimes they go with the ones that have the most power, or the ones that not necessarily support their narrative, but are have the most power in the media. And sometimes, most of the time, that seems to be the left, because journalism is mostly a left-wing thing for the most part. I mean, that's not completely true. There are right-wing journalists, but there's a lot of left-wing journalism. And so a lot of this has to do with them not wanting to get, smeared or, basically attacked by these different politicians or, pundits or whatever it might be. Not necessarily journalists in this particular case, but, and this is true for a lot of cases, actually. There's a couple of different times when this has happened. And so YouTube decides to cave to these people. Like I said, I don't necessarily blame YouTube or blame these people, because I know where their reactions are coming from, right? As I've talked about before in my channel, the wisdom matrix. All reactions come from the mind, for the most part. Well, for the all part, actually, but And so I understand where this is coming from. But what YouTube ends up doing is they either overreact, and the reason why they overreact is so they can avoid this problem. Of course, the problem is that they can't avoid this problem. They cannot avoid somebody going after them for anything that they're doing. They might not realize this, but what they're doing is they're basically just going to, like I said, this is not something where I blame anybody, because the problem here is that one side thinks one thing, and the other side thinks another thing, and there are people in the middle who I suppose I would consider myself to be in the middle, who are torn between these two different people, two different ideas or factions or whatever you want to call them, and they both have these ideas, and they're like, no, it has to be this way. No, it has to be that way. Well, why does it have to be any way at all? What is there any part of your ideas that work? By this meaning, is there anything in there that has been shown to actually do what they claim it does? And what are because oftentimes what's ignored is what I would like to call the side effects of this problem. Because, to implement or to say, to ban certain speech or whatever is one thing. But what happens when you ban the speech? What is the side effect? What happens to the people? Now, I'm not saying that, you have freedom of speech all the time or whatever. But what happens is oftentimes these people go underground and they become more radicalized than they were before. Now, I'm not saying to, like I said, I'm not saying to not ban people or whatever. I'm just saying that these are the results. This is what we've seen. We see this happened. A good example of this could be, because see, the problem is, the mind's radicalization doesn't, it works by you resisting the thing that you're against. So, there's been a big thing against the alt-right within the last, 5 or 6 years. And so they became more popular, became more radicalized. Now they're dying now because they can't keep the pretense up, and people have, called them out and all this stuff. But before that, there was a lot of this going on. This radicalization is still going on. So you have one side of an issue saying one thing, and you have one side on the issue, another side on the issue saying a completely, totally different thing. And so you go, where is the line here? What is actually accurate? What is actually true here? Because we're not getting the right information from either of these sides, really. We're getting bits and pieces of the right information, but we're not getting right information. Now, what this has to do, so back to what I was originally talking about. So YouTube decided to overreact to the situation, hoping to avoid the news, so to speak. Because, like I said, I understand the comments part, because, there could be a case for that. But the sharing part is where, I suppose their thought might be that, I don't know, maybe pedophiles might share this video or something. But the truth is that you can't really stop pedophiles from finding certain things or whatever it might be. They're going to find it somehow, one way or another. All that you're going to do is you're going to push them underground. Now, there's a way to deal with this problem. There has to be a way to deal with this problem. So, like I said, the lack of comments thing I can get, because basically what they're doing is that if you're a kid's channel, you can't comment on it or you can't share it. The comments thing I get, because there can be some arguments for that, and even the sharing thing I can understand to a certain extent. But the problem is where do you stop? Where do you stop? because one sharing sharing of things is how it really spreads. Um, and so you're basically making it harder for people to find certain things, children to find certain things. And if you don't like certain videos, that's fine. But where do you draw this line? This is a question that I ask myself when I'm, doing anything, looking at anything political wise. Where do you draw the line? Where do you say, okay, this is a little too much, this is not enough? And the problem is, there is no real way of knowing what is going to be too far and what is not going to be too far. We had this idea that we have to govern ourselves, govern, the world or whatever. This kind of comes from The Shadow as well. You can watch my podcast, what was it called? I forget what it's called. Understanding the Shadow or something like that. But basically, like I said, I get the principle behind it. The no comment thing is basically because, there's a couple reasons for that, You don't want somebody to predatorize a child or something. But sharing is not going to do that necessarily. So what you're going to do is you may possibly radicalize people further. Not necessarily on purpose, or even most people who see this, but most people are going to be in between a rock and a hard place now, because they don't know what to do. They don't know where to turn, where to go. This is why I try and steer away from politics nowadays, because I'm starting to realize that you can't really know. There's not enough awareness or foresight in most people to realize that this is too far, this is not far enough, because we have this problem of living within the world that we're living in now, the third dimension or the third density, and so we can't see everything that's in front of us or whatever. Even half the stuff that's in front of even like a tenth of the stuff that's in front of us, that or the stuff that's even behind us, because there's so much information. So, like I said, I think what their goal, what their reasoning behind this is they're just trying to avoid, getting caught, getting attacked as much as they can from this stuff. But they can't really avoid it. That's the problem. It's that they can't avoid this problem by doing this. But what they're going to do is it's going to fuel more fire for the right-wing side of, oh, look at them, they're moderating people again, they're censoring people again. And the left-wing side is going to see that, and they're going to go, well, look at this, they're, doing whatever it might be. And so the problem persists. What you resist persists. So how do you deal with this problem? How do you deal with this effectively? I don't honestly know, because every time I try and come up with ideas or ways of dealing with a problem, how do you tell people this? How do you show people this? Because often people are so stuck within their default positions or their own biases, including myself sometimes, don't get me wrong, that they fail to see or understand, and then they think you're attacking them. So, this is why I'm extremely wary nowadays about talking about, these positions. I mean, I do talk about it, but you have this problem of, when you do have a situation like this, there's no real way to turn anymore, because everybody is always, well, not everybody, but a lot of the main political, people are at each other's throats because they can't seem to understand that the other side is just as I don't know exactly what you'd call it, but just as moral or just as right as you in some ways. I feel almost the same way. So, but so YouTube's reaction is just a political one for the most part. I think that's been the case for the longest time. They're not actually doing this because, I mean, they could be doing that for ideological reasons as well, but for the most part, they're doing it for, monetary reasons. They're trying to keep themselves in business. And they're in between a rock and a hard place, just like Facebook and all these other companies. And YouTube has actually been the best of all of them as far as this whole stuff has been concerned, and Google has for the most part. Yes, they have, had problems, but some of them really just oversimplify and just do all these different things. And I'm not real sure what to do here, what the solution is, but I just know that this is exactly what happens. This is exactly what you get when you don't look at, what you're doing, what your beliefs are, or how they're affecting your life. Can ask the question, what are the ramifications of this? Whenever you're looking at, your beliefs or your rule book, whatever rules it might be in your rule book, what are the ramifications of this in my life? How do I know? Not how do I know, but how does this play out in my life, basically? And so all these things, they happen unconsciously. I actually don't know what to tell you. I don't know what the solution is, because every time you think it's gonna get better, every time you think maybe somebody's gonna wake up and say, wait a second, what are we doing here? They keep moving it forwards and keep radicalization more. It could be because I'm in an echo chamber. I don't know. It could be. I mean, I do watch, what politics. I try and figure out what's going on sometimes, because I try to figure out where they're coming from, what their mind state is, and then I see them reacting. I've seen myself do this before, in the past, so I know how the cycle goes. It doesn't really stop until you wake up and say, wait a second, what the hell am I doing? What am I doing? And then you start realizing that you're not actually helping or fixing the situation. You're not actually doing anything, right or wrong necessarily. Well, you're not even. It's not even by that, actually. It started more with me with an idea of wait a second, what is happening to me? I'm not getting so angry and attacking all these different people for whatever reason. And maybe it's time to calm down. Maybe things are not I mean, it didn't end like this, but maybe things are not as bad as it seems. But the way the radicalization works is it doesn't stop until you start realizing how radical you are and how you and it doesn't really stop until you desire to change it in some way, and then start acting on that. Not everybody's there. Not even most people may not even be there. Not even saying that most people are radicalized, but everybody has their default positions. Most people have their default positions or their biases. And I can say that I'm probably there to some extent, but I'm aware, way aware of how it affects things, because I don't know. But this video has gotten way serious, or way more serious than I originally thought it would be. But the reason why I wanted to make this video is mostly to explain why I think YouTube is doing this. Or not necessarily doing it because Because a couple months ago, there was a big sort of tiff that sort of happened between YouTube and some creators, because somebody's channel or somebody's video actually got deleted because of deleted, and I believe it was either deleted or demonetized, or deleted a video and demonetized that channel because of a few comments, instead of actually like getting rid of the comments themselves. And a lot of creators got really mad at the time. I don't blame them. I mean, it was an overreaction on their part. Like I said, I think they did this mostly to try and avoid exactly what happened, but which is ironic. But so that I think this is part of what's causing this. They're trying to avoid this from happening. They don't want to get sued because apparently it happened because of somebody was suing them for some weird reason. But so I'm going to go start where I kind of started before. Where do you stop? Because the problem here isn't that YouTube is wrong or whatever. It's where's the balance here? The parents, if the parents are watching their kids, because to be completely honest, they aren't all the time. I'm not saying that most parents aren't watching their kids when they're doing these things, because they are. Some of them are, but a lot of them are busy doing other things. And so whose fault is that when a kid finds something on YouTube that is, not maybe not necessarily good for the kid or whatever? I'm not saying it's the parent's fault, but I'm not saying it's YouTube's fault either. I'm saying that maybe the parent needs to be more careful around the kids. In some ways, the parents are too careful around the kids, which is causing this as well. To some extent, there's a bit of a word for it called helicopter parents, but so I don't really know what the solution is, but I do know that more awareness and more of asking the question, like, what is the ramifications of this, or looking at, I don't really know, because the more I see this, the more it makes me wonder if there really is a way to deal with this effectively. Because you can't stop. I mean, this is exactly the same reason why there are some laws that you just shouldn't make, but exist anyways. I mean, you can't make a law saying, be moral, be good people. I mean, you can do that, and I'm not saying that, we should get rid of, like, laws of murder or rape or whatever, but where do you stop? Where do you go? Where do you say enough? And honestly, I don't know. That's the problem, because there's no stopping. They're not stopping. They're not, I mean, I'm not saying that people aren't just, like, going extreme or anything, but when it comes to these things, these laws that they make, they're not stopping. They're not realizing, wait a second, maybe this is a little extreme. Where do we stop? Where do we go? Wait a minute. What happened to, our freedoms or whatever? And this is the same argument to be made about the war on terror. The war on terror that the American government started 15, 16, 17 years ago, actually created more terror, and not just that, but we actually funded the terrorists, not just recently, but in the beginning with the Mujahideen in Afghanistan. We gave them weapons and all these different things, and then they ended up becoming terrorists. So we can ask the same question: where do you stop? Because they're still doing this. They're still going after terrorists, because of one terrorist act that happened here. I'm not saying that terrorist act wasn't bad or anything. I'm just saying that maybe the reaction of the government is way too strong for this one thing. Hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people are refugees because of this one terrorist act, and it's actually spread terror further than it was, more terrorism than it was before. So where do you stop? Where do you draw this line? Because if you don't draw a line, you're gonna have a problem like this. You have to find a line somewhere. Find that line and say, we go there. If maybe not say we go there and we go no further, but we say, like, we go there and we look and say, well, what happens if we go further? What are the ramifications here? Because we're running into that line now with this and with these different laws. I mean, people in the United Kingdom are getting arrested for jokes and things like that. I'm not saying that, those jokes were good jokes or anything like that, but where do you stop? Where's the line here? And I know the UK is different, but still, this is an example of this. Where's the line? Where do we draw the line? Because if we don't have a line, what's going to stop us from going over the edge of, like sanity and clear-headedness? We have to be careful that we don't become the thing that we hate. Like with this example of the war on terror, we have to be careful. We have to be careful that we don't become the terrorists, because we're now the terrorists in these different countries. And instead of the terrorists actually terrorizing us, we're now the terrorists. So where's that line? I don't see it, and I don't know if it'll ever be found. So I hate to make this video very negative like this, but I just wanted to make that to explain. Maybe the line is, I don't know if there is a line. If there is one, where do you make it? Where do you draw it? I mean, this is the stuff of life right here. This is where your decisions are made, and all these different things. I mean, in all fairness, though, it may not nearly be as bleak as it seems to be sometimes. And that's why you ask the question: where is the line? Why is this actually as real as it seems? I don't know. But so when it comes to this where's the line question, it doesn't just apply to this particular case or the cases that I've talked about here. About the war on terror and all these different things. It applies to your life as well. Where is the line? Where are you going? What's your line going to be? Or basically, what are your different ideas that you want to fulfill in the future, and how far are you willing to go? Or something like that. I mean, with life, it's a little bit more less. It's a little bit more abstract, a little less clear. But it's also the same with this stuff as well, to some extent. That's why people, stay away from politics, because there's this problem here. And I might not be, the best at this either, because I'm doing. There may be a little bit of fear-based politics in here, but There's a reason for fear. Like sometimes when it's like if it's done in the right way, it can be fine. But that's just another question to ask. Where's that line? Where's that fear? When does that fear become an overreaction? I don't know. But I do know that too much of an overreaction, like saying, "Oh, we're all doomed," because there are some channels who go to that extreme and they say, well, this whole culture war or this whole political divide thing just can't be mended. And I think that's a bit extreme, but I understand why you think that, but I think it's extreme. But at the same time, I understand why they think it, because radicalization, when you're in a radicalized state, you don't really listen to reason for the most part. But at the same time, I left radicalization. I know other people have as well. It can be done. Admittedly, it does seem like less people do leave it than actually enter it or stay there. But people are starting to wake up, and this is like happening more and more often. People are starting to realize what's happening here, and they're starting to wake up from this radicalization trap. But it still happens anyways. So this video is very, I don't know, almost doomcrier-ish, like doomsayer-ish, but I'm not trying to be negative here. Actually, I'm actually pretty sure that people are starting to wake up to this problem. Some people are waking up to it, but they don't know what to do. Some people are like, well, we have to do this or that or whatever. But I don't really know exactly what camp I would be in this case. I do think that, watching what your mind is doing is really the only way to fix this problem, because most problems in politics actually don't come from the things themselves for the most part. They come from the mind, or battles with metaphysics, which basically just means like you have your idea of how things are and how they should be, and I have mine or whatever, and then they have these still clashes because of this. This is probably the biggest part of politics. I mean, there's more that's involved, but mind, without mind, none of this would really be, for the most part. It would just be, I don't know, animals walking in the forest or something. I mean, it may make things easier, but it wouldn't necessarily be more effective, or what serves us. So, anyways, this is political ideas and thoughts. I might not release this video, but I don't know. Comment below. Tell me what you think, because I don't know if this, I don't know exactly where to go, what the line is, but I do know how the way to deal with the radicalization problem is to look at this rule book that you have, because all of this radicalization comes from your rule book, and when somebody violates it, and then your response is, if you feel like it's an attack or whatever it might be. So, anyways, this is political ideas and thoughts, and I'll see you in the next video.